Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Star Wars Stuff Podcast. My name is David,
Hello there. My name is Gerald Kenobi.
and this is where we talk all things Star Wars. And a pretty cool story just dropped moments ago, really. We were just talking about it here with the podcast on group chat. And of course, we're going to talk about it. And it's a story that I think we heard about it a few months ago that Damon Lindelof was rumored to be involved with Star Wars in some way, shape, or form. And it was one of those rumors where it seemed like industry insiders kind of already knew that this was happening. And I think all the trades, or at least one trade, I believe, the Hollywood Reporter confirmed it today. So there is going to be a film involving Damon Lindelof attached
Mm,
to a director uh,
wow.
named Charmin Obaid Chinoy, and she is a Miss Marvel director from the Disney Plus show. Um, I know you've heard all of our thoughts. I don't think we have General Kenobi's thoughts on Damon Lindelof working the Star Wars project. So, what are your thoughts exactly on this?
Sure. Yeah, no, as I mentioned before, I was just catching up on this, but well, like you mentioned, we sort of knew it was coming. There's been whispers out there for quite a bit, and but it's I'm actually a little bit surprised that it seems to be a little bit more far along than I thought at this point, at least. Hey, when people ask me, it's like, hey, aren't you getting fed up about too much Star Wars? To which I say, there is no such thing. All right. So more Star Wars is always better in my book. All right. Yes, we have hit and misses, but it's kind of like pizza, Even like the mediocre one, it's still pretty good. So let's see where we go with this. I'll be honest with you, I have not watched the Miss Marvel show, so I can't take that as a point of reference in terms of the director. But I have to assume that if she was given the helm of you know, if she has already helmed something for Marvel, which is obviously the other behemoth, along with Star Wars, I don't see why not. So yeah, I'm excited. I mean, let's see what they can do.
Yeah, that's one of the more interesting tidbits that came out today. The fact that they're further along with this film compared to any
Yep.
other film at Lucasfilm, and it's like a super head scratcher to me because it's like, I mean,
Agreed.
they've been developing a Rogue Squadron, they've had that Ryan Johnson trilogy on back order, it seems,
Yeah.
and you would figure there's other stuff there cooking, and they're further along with this than anything else. And of course, we all know that we're not going to get a film in 2023 that we were kind of not really promised, but it was on the slate for
Exactly.
2023, 25, 27. So we were all hyped up about that. And then we all assumed it was Taika's movie that was going to happen.
Right.
He hasn't started on a film, he's doing all kinds of other projects. So maybe 2025, this is the Damon Lindelof film. And the other information we got today, just moments ago, is that this film from Damon Lindelof is going to take place after the sequel trilogy. It's not going to involve the Skywalker saga, but it may involve sequel trilogy characters.
Interesting.
So,
Very interesting.
what does this mean? Does this mean maybe our kind of presumptions are accurate and that maybe we get Daisy Ridley back into the fold? She rejoined social media. It seems like she's a lot more keen to the idea of returning, possibly. Same thing with John Boyega. It seems like he's softened up a bit. He made that statement, "Don't Disney Plus me," before Disney Plus even came out, and it's a
Yeah.
raging success. And you would think if you're his agent, you'd be like, "Oh my God, what did you just
Wait.
say?"
Yeah. Exactly.
I
Let's
mean, this,
yeah.
yeah, it's a
Let's double back
moneymaker.
on that. Oh yeah. Absolutely. Um, Especially because we haven't really seen him that much, right? Since. Um, and so yeah, absolutely. I'll be all over that Disney Plus money for sure. That's interesting. I mean, I guess it was never said or written down that we were done with the expansion of the timeline, right? In terms of, you know, um, with the Rise of Skywalker, that was it, right? We were capping it off. I mean, if you remember on the expanded universe, we kept going for hundreds of years right into the future. So I, I welcome it. It makes sense in a way, seeing as the grand majority of the Star Wars projects right now are sort of doubling down right on this on almost the same period of time. Um, Maybe Ahsoka being the exception, and Mandalorian right when we what's to come. But it's interesting. I mean, this would be um, unexplored territory in a sense, right? We haven't had any stories around that point after the sequel trilogy. If they're not touching down with the Skywalkers, which at this point it's probably a smart move, honestly. Let's still, get time to cool off on that a little bit more. Um, it's interesting. I mean, yeah, they have a wide world, to explore on, and they still have plenty of factions at play and plenty of places to visit, many characters to develop, even some that we've already seen. So I don't know. You're right. This could signal a little bit more of a return for Daisy Ridley, maybe more in a cameo. Not necessarily the central, um, character anymore. Uh, be cool to see. I mean, I have no problems with her, acting in general. I think she did fine with what she had. Same thing with John Boyega, but yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting, and they're pushing the envelope on that on the timeline, I guess. But makes sense.
So yeah, I want to talk a little bit about Damon Lindelof.
Yeah.
So my history with him is that I've been a bigger fan of his in previous years, and I'm kind of lukewarm on him.
Hmm.
But he has a very, very interesting Hollywood story, and he has connections already to Star Wars with J.J. Abrams. And I think I've told the story before on the podcast, but if you didn't hear that podcast and if you don't know his story, it's very interesting, very very entertaining. He was pulled into a meeting somewhere in California, and he was meeting with Bad Robot, going to meet with J.J. Abrams, going to do a pitch for a possible show to basically get a job. And the way that Damon Lindelof has told the story in the past is he made the best fashion choice in his life. So when he went to go meet there, and I mean, you could maybe think, okay, well, he knew that JJ was a huge Star Wars fan, so maybe he did this on purpose, but in hindsight, but he wore his old original Bantha Tracks t-shirt, kind
Oh,
of like
no
a
way.
quarter sleeve.
Right.
So he said that he had that shirt when he was a little boy, of course, when Bantha Tracks was first released, and he got
Right.
a bigger shirt than what he was, so he just wore it as a nightshirt. But he kept it all those years, so it actually fit him as an adult. He wore that shirt. JJ came out into the lobby where he was waiting, and he looks around and he sees David Lindelof, and he goes, Bantha Tracks. And then that started their conversation and their
That's all.
friendship. And the pitch meeting was for the legendary TV show Lost.
Oh,
They developed Lost, and it's funny because when people think of Lost, they think of J.J. Abrams, of course.
sure.
But J.J. Abrams was only involved in the very first episode, and that's pretty much it. He
Yeah.
left it to Damon Lindelof and Carlton Cuse to develop. They developed it, show ran it, approved it, had final say, final cut over everything,
Right.
and it became an extraordinary show. Um, and at the time, it was for me. I thought it was must-watch television. I thought the whole entire country was watching it as well, and there was a lot of water cooler talk
Oh, yeah.
around each episode, each week. It wasn't on a streaming service. It was on regular TV, so it was
Exactly.
appointment television,
Oh, yeah.
and it was really good. And they had a lot of Star Wars archetypes in that show. And they succeeded. And they later on admitted that, yeah, we didn't know where the story was going. We were just laying the train tracks in front of the
Yeah.
oncoming train. But it was still entertaining. It was interesting. It really made me it made me kind of regret not paying more attention in school because they were making a lot of references to ancient Egyptian mythology, all kinds of different science, famous famous people from the past. They were naming. The interesting thing was they were naming some of these characters, very famous philosophical people
Right.
and scientists like Dr. Faraday, and it was super interesting. And then of course the finale came, and people didn't like the finale, and there was a big uproar about how it ended. A lot
Yeah.
like Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I was just gonna compare it to that. Yeah, it was a great show. I agree with you. There was a lot of layers to that show. Let's put it
Yeah.
that way. Uh, and yes, they also, just like Game of Thrones, they also sort of came out saying, yeah, we didn't really have, uh, a full laid out plan for where the show was going. But it got interesting. I mean, they kept us at the edge of a seat pretty much every season. They found a way to reel us back in. And yeah, the finale was not very well liked or at all. But yeah, I mean, for what it was, they were very successful. It like I said, I don't feel that there was a specifically weak season in the show. I think they were just a little bit different, each one of them, and they kept pushing the envelope as far as they could, at least with what they had. Actors were good. The characters, like you mentioned, they had a lot of how do you call it? Maybe like hidden meaning to them, right? And then yeah, that so like you mentioned, there was a lot to peel back on that show. I enjoyed it. I watched it almost up to the last season as it was coming out, and then I forget why I didn't catch the last season. And then I went back and I saw the whole thing right in like a weekend. And so, but yeah, definitely, whatever you may think of that show, the show, right? Like what it was. And like you said, there was always people talking about it. Like people were, again, whether you liked it or not, you were still talking about it for sure.
Yeah, it felt like to me it was that generation Star Trek.
Yeah, there you go.
But it was to me it felt way more interesting. There were so many obscure things that would happen
Yeah,
and be on that island. The smoke monster, the polar bear
yeah,
hatch. I mean,
yeah,
it was really interesting, and the characters and the careers I think that were made on that show as well.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Very true.
so that series loss concluded right about at the kind of uprising of social media and Twitter and everything.
Hmm.
And Damon Lindelof, I remember him saying that he would go back and forth with fans over theories and why the show ended the way it did. And
All right.
he admitted that he had to I mean it got so bad that he had to seek therapy, professional therapy to kind of
Dang.
get over the whole thing. And
Yeah,
that's a pretty bad thing. I mean, it's because I
yeah,
mean fans get all upset about a thing that it's just a fictional story, and
yeah.
it's there's no one's life is on the line. I mean,
Exactly.
you have no way to control what a creator does unless you're a writer. So I know that happened. So after that, he became a pretty hot name in Hollywood. And I remember he also told another story that he was driving on a highway somewhere in California, and he got the phone call from his agent, and he said, Ridley Scott wants to have a meeting with you like as soon as possible. And he's like, wait a minute. He said he pulled to the side of the road. He's like, Ridley Scott? He's like, yeah, Ridley Scott.
Wow.
And he goes, is this about the Alien Project? And they're like, yes, it's about
Yeah.
the upcoming. So it became Prometheus. So
Right.
he was one of the head writers for Prometheus. And whatever you think about that film was controversial as well. I
Yeah.
believe it,
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
it made some decent money,
Yeah. I think it did. All right. Yeah. At the box
but
office.
a lot of people were kind of 50-50 on it because it really
Yeah.
didn't deal specifically with what they knew on screen with the aliens. It dealt with the engineers, which I wanted to know that backstory.
Agreed.
But when I first saw it, it kind of left me wanting a whole lot more. They
Yeah.
raised a
I
whole
agree.
lot more
I was
questions.
gonna say. I felt like I had more questions coming out than I had answers. Uh,
Yeah.
and it visually was great. Like I love the way that movie looks. But yeah, story wise, I don't know. I guess I'm assuming they were banking on having more movies, right, to expand on the story, which they did. They went back and had some more movies, but not for a little while. So yeah, I agree with you. The whole the engineering backstories, I sort of felt that. Hey, Legacy of Nerd, what's going on, brother? Congrats on hitting 500 subs, by the way. So yeah, I felt that the story was still sort of untapped in a way, with the direction that the sequels took. But yes, absolutely. So Prometheus, money wise, I think it did just fine. Story wise, I felt it left more questions than answers. And I don't know if that's what they were going for, right? Maybe they're like, hey, this is just the first entry in a new trilogy. We got all this like plan to expand more on the story. At the end of the trilogy, I'll be honest with you, I don't particularly feel that way. But yeah, if we look at just Prometheus, um, it definitely got the attention of people as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think a little bit before that, though, or a little bit after that, he helped with Star Trek Into Darkness, I believe. A lot of fans didn't take to that film. I really loved it. I thought it was going to do really great, but apparently a lot of people didn't like it. I love J.J. Abrams' Star Trek, and that's why I was super excited when J.J. was attached to direct the first Star Wars film since Revenge of the Sith. I was just super hyped. That whole year in 2014, 2015.
Oh yeah.
I was just trying to find out it was like I was back in 1990, 98, 99.
Yeah.
And I kind of relived that again, going to the internet, trying to find out certain things.
Yeah, I mean, when I was up for, I guess I've never been like a huge Star Trek fan. I know I've seen a couple of the movies, some of the main characters. But when I saw the first JJ movie for Star Trek, I was like, whoa, like he went for it. I felt that he had to go the way he did in order to differentiate himself, right, from everything that had gone before, right? If you're going to use these characters, people were going to compare you to everything under the sun, right? That's been for the past 50 years. But, the way he handled the story, he kind of set himself, a little breathing room, right? With the alternate timeline and everything. So I thought that was genius. I was like, dude, that's really the only way you can do this, at this late in the game, right? If you want to tell an original story. So I enjoyed it a lot. I'll be honest with you. He got me hooked on those movies for sure. And likewise, man, when I heard that he had jumped off of that to go do Star Wars, basically, I was like, hey, that makes perfect sense for me, right? He's more of a fan of Star Wars. He's gonna do great. And just like you, I was all in on Episode 7, right? Which I never thought we were gonna get while George Lucas was alive. Basically, that was my theory. Once he passes, and his family decides to sell off the rights and stuff, then
exactly
we'll
what
get,
I thought.
Yeah, then we'll get this next trilogy, right, or a set of movies or TV shows or whatever it was, right? But in my mind, again, that's when we would get new Star Wars, right? And it happened a lot sooner, right? And we all know how that's been going on. But I agree with you. I was super excited for JJ to direct Star Wars.
Yeah, so that's pretty much in a nutshell what my experience is with Damon. We all know he's a super huge Star Wars fan.
Yeah.
He's gonna treat it very, very.
So, do you think he's gonna go for sort of a more of an original telling? Do you think he's gonna double down on on the tried and true formula? Do we know if he has is this a single shot? Just one movie? Sorry.
So yeah, one of the details that came out that this is going to be a single film, but if it does well, they're probably going to add more to it.
Okay.
But going back to what you said earlier, I think what you said first, them kind of giving the sequel trilogy a little bit of breathing room here, I'm pretty sure there's going to be an episode 10 coming out at some point. You know,
Yeah,
there's just got to be.
agree.
When episode 3 premiered, I was telling myself, there's no way in my lifetime, if I live a normal life,
Exactly.
we're not going to see another Star Wars
Exactly.
episodic film. I mean, they're just this just makes way too much money.
Yeah.
Someone's going to find a way. It's going to happen. And of course, it happened in 2015.
Right.
But of course, like you said, I thought George Lucas was maybe going to pass away, and then his kids were going to get the rights or something. And then they were going to be like, okay, well, let's sell it,
Yeah.
or let's make it. And
Exactly.
I own it. And actually did meet Jet Lucas, by the way, at Star Wars Celebration at the 501st Bash. He was pretty cool.
Oh, really? Nice.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
he's like, the dude is like 6'6". He's
Yeah.
like super tall.
Yeah.
And I ran into him at Galaxy's Edge too later
Oh,
on
that's
that
awesome.
weekend. So yeah, we ran into each other twice.
Yeah, I saw him at in what was it, 2019, I think, in Chicago. But I saw him from afar. I didn't get he. I was sitting in line waiting for Ray Park, and the way the booths were, Ray Park ended. There was a hallway, and then some more booths would continue after that. So that hallway was actually where they would bring in and out like the talent. And so I got to see some people, just walking by, like 8 feet away from me, and Seth was one of them. Like he was just going, I guess, backstage, right? He was done with signing. So, but yeah, he is tall. Like I was surprised by that, because I mean George Lucas is not, it's not necessarily a big man, right?
Well, Jet Lucas is adopted, so
Yeah.
George Lucas isn't his biological father.
Yeah.
And I think the rest of his children are not are adopted as well. I think he has 2 other daughters. But yeah, the other project, I almost forgot about this. The other project that Damon Lindelof was involved with, which might be the best project that he's been involved with, was the Watchmen TV show on
Ooh.
HBO.
Now that's some good TV right there. Okay.
That was incredible. It blew me away.
Yeah.
I became a huge Watchmen fan later on in life. As an adult, I never read the graphic novel in the 80s. I was like in elementary school, so I probably
Yeah,
couldn't.
exactly. Same.
And I didn't really get into graphic novels until I kind of found out about them, that they had this list of the top 100 best novels of the 20th century, and Watchmen was on the list. And it's like, wow, like a graphic novel, a comic book, a series of comic books like connected together made that list. So I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna read it and see what it's all about. And I kind of fell in love with it. And then of course Zack Snyder made the movie,
right?
And they came out on 3/6/9. I'll never forget that date.
Yeah, I filmed that movie. I enjoyed it. I mean, I watched it at the time, and I liked it. I had not read the graphic novel. I read it afterwards because of it. But I even then, like, I remember saying, like, this feels like a little bit ahead of its time. Like, I feel that if that movie would have come out maybe even just 5 years later, maybe 10 years later, I'm not too sure, I think it would have had a way different, impact on people, right? Because we would have gone through, what is it, phase maybe 2 and 3 of maybe just 2 of Marvel at that point. And so people would have been already pretty into the superhero movie, right? And then to get a film like this one, right, which it just slaps you in the face with, like, what superheroes would have been like, really. And I think that, again, I think the story would have hit a lot better, or it would have been more successful. Not to say that it was a flop or anything like that, but I feel that it would have made, a lot more money. And then the TV show comes out, and whoa, like that. I mean, just that first episode, man, like those first, few like scenes, I was like, wow, they really went for it. Then they just remember, I remember seeing on Twitter, it's like, yeah, no, just by the way, this is all real. Like, this really did happen. And I was like, what? What do you mean this really did happen? And like another, probably 100 million people I took to Google and Googled it. I was like, whoa, like that's crazy that I did not know about this. So again, just with that first episode, I was like, wow, like that's incredible that a TV show just brought some awareness, right, to something that it's right there on the history books. It's just not very much talked about, right? Um, and
Yeah,
then
Black Wall Street. Yeah.
exactly, Black Wall Street, and that whole well, massacre, really. I mean, I don't know what else to call it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that show was awesome. My only gripe is that I know they said that it was kind of like a one and done type of thing. Um, at least with them, right? With them helming the show. Um, Again, like we've been talking about Star Wars, I don't know that they will leave that property alone. I wouldn't think so. But I haven't heard anything that something's in the works for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Incredible TV show.
Yeah.
Um, they just hit every note pitch perfect.
Yeah.
And it's surprising that more people don't talk about that TV show.
Agreed.
That's the last thing you worked on. Pretty impressive. And of course,
Oh
the
yeah.
creator of Watchmen, famously Alan Moore, who wrote the graphic novel in the 80s, I believe. And
Yeah.
he's done a lot of other stuff like
Oh,
what's that one movie called with Sean Connery?
yeah. The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Yes, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Yeah.
That was a graphic novel beforehand.
Right.
He's done all kinds of stuff, but he has publicly said that he wants nothing to do with any corporate entity taking his work and making it into TV films. So that's another kind of interesting rabbit hole to go down. But I went down it years and years ago. It's very interesting. Very interesting guy. He's a genius.
Oh yeah, definitely. He's got to be in the Mount Rushmore of comic book creators by this point.
Yeah. But now we have Damon Lindelof set to give us a film, hopefully. I say hopefully because we've lost so many filmmakers, directors, creators along the way here.
Yeah, I don't know if I forget who I was talking to about this, but I don't know if Disney's just like, you know what, guys, I think TV is working better. Let's just pour our resources into that, and let's stay away from actual films, for a little bit until we got more of a sure hitter, I guess. I was actually looking forward to Rogue Squadron. That story, I was always a fan of that kind of stuff in the expanded universe, and I thought, man, I thought it was gonna happen when I saw Corran, as a kid and in the Kenobi show, and I was like, man, that's perfect. So it's gonna line up like his age to the Corran that we knew in the expanded universe, when he's a pilot after Return of the Jedi, right? Like that period. I was like, man, they did it on purpose. He's for sure gonna be in the Rogue Squadron movie, and then poof, like just gone. So yeah, I don't know. We still haven't gotten an official cancellation to the Rian Johnson trilogy, but I don't know that we gotten any more details about it either. So like you mentioned, it's sort of like in the back burner, but they don't want to fully throw it out again. And I don't know if at this point it's just a point of pride saying, hey, we won't acknowledge that The Last Jedi was was the undoing of the sequel trilogy or something like that. I don't really know where they're going with that. When exciting projects like Rogue Squadron are getting scrapped, and then right now with Lindelof being again, I was surprised that they're so far ahead, to be honest, or so far developed. When I think there's other projects that catches the attention of fans a lot more, but yeah. So again, my point is, I don't know if they're just shying away from actual feature films, like to be released in theaters.
Yeah, so that I agree with all that. Everything you just said. I mean, is every time that someone sticks a microphone in Rian Johnson's face on a red carpet, he says, "Yeah, we're working on it. I want to get it
Right.
done. I want to make it happen." But of course, he's super busy, ultra busy. He has
Yeah.
a production company he created from scratch. He has the Knives Out trilogy he's trying to do, and it feels like where's going to have the time to develop something that's quality, that's great Star Wars. I think he has it in him to make a great Star Wars trilogy, to maybe be like the showrunner of
Yeah.
and just be the kind of George Lucas to a trilogy. I think he has that in him, but it's he has so many jobs. I mean,
Yeah.
he's so busy. Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, like you said, maybe given the helm of an actual trilogy, right? Where he can expand on his vision and see it to fruition, not just come in the middle of of an already sort of kicked off project, and you don't even know what the ending is supposed to be. To be fair, that's a tough position for anybody. Um, but yeah, I agree with you. I think he's a talented director. Maybe giving maybe a little bit more freedom. To have his vision projected. Maybe he can come up with something really good. But yes, you're absolutely right. He is super busy. So again, Disney doesn't seem to be in a hurry either to put this out there. Again, maybe just some of that cool off period, that they're seem to sort of be going for. And it's going to be interesting. I mean, I don't know if after so long they're just, at one point they're just going to say, yeah, no, never mind, that was never in the works.
yeah, yeah. So, kind of on the heels of what we're talking about here about releasing films, I was seeing throughout the day people were talking about this story about Kathleen Kennedy and her bosses at Disney telling her to stop announcing films. I wasn't sure if it was legitimate, but it
Wow,
looks like a lot more legitimate outlets are reporting on this.
really?
So yeah, so Kathleen Kennedy. Here's the story from Star Wars Newsnet. So the headline is Disney advised Kathleen Kennedy to stop announcing Star Wars projects. More Lucasfilm executive personnel changes possible.
Wow.
So the story states a new detailed story on Puck News by former Hollywood Reporter editor Matt Belloni has shared a lot of insight into the struggles of Lucasfilm and President Kathleen Kennedy to get the next era of Star Wars films developed. This December, it will have been 3 years since the last time a Star Wars movie hit the big screen, and save for Indiana Jones 5 next year, it looks like we're looking at another 3-year window before it happens again.
Oof.
Ever since The Rise of Skywalker premiered in theaters back in 2019, Kathleen Kennedy has announced 2 live-action Star Wars movies. On May 4th, 2020, the company released an official statement saying that Taika Waititi would be co-writing and directing a new film set in a galaxy far, far away. It's been 2.5 years, and the movie is still not written. Later that year, on December 10th, it was also announced that Patty Jenkins would be directing Rogue Squadron. Now that project is on the back burner, along with Rian Johnson's trilogy. As a result, Puck News is saying Disney CEO Bob Chapek has advised Kathleen Kennedy to stop announcing projects until they are set in stone to avoid further negative press surrounding the franchise and the company. So
Wow.
there you go.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like, hey, you know what? We're not even sure we want to make any more of these films. So stop.
No, they know
Just
they want to
stop.
make the films. It's just,
Well, they know they want to
do they
make the
want to
money.
talk about them
They
before
just,
they're kind of like
yeah,
locked?
that's what I'm saying. Like, particularly, the films that they had already talked about. Yeah, but I guess so, right? I mean, I didn't realize it. Kind of hit me when you said, yeah, 3 years without a Star Wars movie. That is absolutely right. That is absolutely right. And another 3 years before we maybe see one. Yeesh. I mean, that's quite the gap there. Um, yeah, I mean, like I said, I honestly do think they are reevaluating the film approach. Uh, I have to believe that with the success that the TV shows have had, um, why wouldn't they keep leaning on that, right? When it's their outlet, they control it. They, I guess, they have more of breathing room, let's say, to make it 6 episodes or 24 or something like that, as opposed to just the one movie, and you gotta cram all this story into it because we don't know if we'll get another one as things are going. Uh, so yeah, that's interesting, man. That's kind of crazy that they're like, hey, stop it.
Yeah, I mean, it's when you think about it, it's like, I mean, it's Star Wars. How do we not have a film every single year? You
Exactly.
know, it's Marvel has like 6 films a year, and DC has like
Exactly.
3.
Yeah.
And it's like you got Star Wars, one of the greatest IPs in the world. And it's really what kicked off everything. And then of course you could do expanded universe stuff.
And you can do
You could jump off of the video games. I mean, look at
exactly.
Fallen Order. I mean, you cast a Hollywood actor to play the role, and he
Yeah.
looked like the main character.
Yeah.
I mean,
I mean,
there's tons of things you can do.
you got that whole new era going on right now, right, with the High Republic. That it's going on novels, it's going on comic books. Why not? How about you make sort of like an anthology movie, right?
They
Short
were trying to do
stories.
that with Rogue One. That was supposed to be the first movie.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. That was supposed to kick off again, like you mentioned. Like I was expecting, a Star Wars movie every 2 years at least, to be part of that anthology, right? Part of that. What was it called? Like a Star Wars story, right? I think that was the actual title. And then they got Solo, and then Last Jedi, then Solo, and like they're like nope, 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 and so they just like shied away, and now we are apparently gonna have what 6 years before we maybe get one. So that doesn't sound right. Like you said, I mean, it's one of the greatest IPs out there, and why wouldn't you, right? I mean, it don't make sense.
And I mean, technically for me, I think it's going to be 9 years since I'm going to get a Star Wars film that I possibly like.
Yep.
I mean, that's a long time, man. I mean,
Yes,
that's
it
a
is.
long, long time.
I mean, if you think about it, that's almost the same time between episode 3, right, and episode 7, and a whole lot of stuff happened in between, right, to basically to contribute to that delay, right? I mean, they first of all, there were not going to be any more Star Wars movies, right? Like that was a decree at the end of episode 3. And so it took years of negotiations, for George Lucas to even consider selling, let alone to who, blah, 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 all of that stuff, right? So, yeah, I see the 10 years there, right? I see that gap making sense. But this, when you have everything to make, like you said, why don't we have one every single year?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. That it does baffle me. I am grateful for the TV shows, but I don't know, man. I mean, I feel Star Wars started as movies, right? I mean, there's always the magic in going out to the theater and watching your favorite characters up there.
Yeah, for sure. And that leads us into our next story here from Galactic Transmissions on Instagram. They reported that Andor became the highest-rated 2022 Star Wars show, beating Kenobi and Book of Boba Fett. Andor has become the highest-rated Star Wars TV show of 2022 on IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes, but it's the least watched, I believe, compared to The Mandalorian, which is like still number 1, which is like leading the way still. And then of course you have Book of Boba Fett, Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's a weird time right now for Star Wars.
It is. It really is. I feel that Andor has been sort of the how can I say it, the divider in a way that I haven't seen in a while. So everybody that I talk to, everybody that I have talked to, that has seen the show, we sort of describe the show the same way, right? Everybody, and you're gonna, I know you've heard it, 30 times by now. The slow burn, the character development, the not so much action, right? I keep hearing that all throughout. But again, the connotation of that describing, some people love it because it is that, right? Because it gives you more, it gives you time to digest the characters, to care about them, the situation, Andor, where he's thinking, where all of that stuff, right? And then there's people like, no, no, man, I just want to see, some Star Destroyers and TIE fighters, like, you know, destroy something, like shoot at something, like come on, like what's going on. So it's just one of those things that I think they're doing a good job in presenting the material, right? I think the show is good in that sense. And it's gonna be, of course, divisive in the sense that some people will like and some people will not. But it does seem to be kind of pervasive the way they're looking at it, right? Like it's kind of like, okay, yeah, we're all watching the same show, right? It's just your personal like preference, whether you like, more story driven or you like more action kind of thing. So I can see why it would be the highest rated, because again, people are, I think, excited about getting something new, right? New in the sense of how the story's been handled. New as in, in the sense that we've barely seen a stormtrooper, right? In the last episode, I think. We just saw that scene from the trailer, right, with the clone troopers.
Yeah.
Right, and that everybody was waiting for from the first episode, and it just happened. So, and then there's the people that are like, no, man, like I need like armies of stormtroopers like at every turn, right? And I need to shoot off every single episode. But what I was gonna say is the people that enjoying it are really, really enjoying it, and the people that are not enjoying it are not watching it anymore, right? So yes, I can see that. I have heard people saying, you know what, it's kind of not, great on a weekly watch, so I'm just gonna let it finish, right? Finish the season, and then I'll watch the whole thing.
There's a lot of people that are going to do that, yeah.
Exactly. So I feel that a big percentage of that drop off in viewership is coming from that camp, and I can't, you can watch whatever you want, however you want, right? But I will say it does make a little bit of sense, because I think we've talked about it here before. If I would not have gotten the first 3 episodes, at once and at the beginning, I think I might have done that. I think I maybe would have skipped 1 week and then catch up the following week to get that arc, in one sitting type of thing. So this arc that just ended, sort of ended, with the heist, I feel that's gonna be a pretty decent rewatch once you watch it all, in one sitting, let's say. So yes, I can see why people are not watching right now, because they're like, dude, we're like halfway there, or just past the halfway. We still got 5 episodes left.
Yes.
So they're like, yeah, you know what? I'm just gonna wait till maybe the next 2 or 3 happen to watch the following arc, and then maybe I'll be, I'll catch up before the season finale, right? So that I don't get any spoilers. So I feel that I feel that people are doing that. I'm not patient enough to do that, but I can see people doing that for sure. So that's interesting, though. That's interesting that it is still pretty highly rated. More than Book of Boba Fett, I see that. More than Kenobi, though, that's a little bit surprising. I mean, Kenobi was a highly expected, sought after, property, like when it was announced and when it's coming out. Mixed feelings on it. I know a lot of people, were disappointed too. I loved it. They only had 6 episodes, right? So with that short span, I think they did a great job at it. But that is a little bit surprising that Andor beat out the score, I guess, on Kenobi.
Yeah, and I agree with it. I think it's the best Star Wars show. It's the best in comparison to what we, I think, wanted in long form films for Star Wars on Disney Plus. The Mandalorian is great. It's terrific. It leans more towards the typical Star Wars genre.
Sure.
Andor, it's more spy thriller, espionage, right up Tony Gilroy's alley,
Yep.
And it's terrific. And I do agree with some of those people that you talk to that they're just gonna wait till the end because you get
Yeah,
a 30-minute chunk, and it's like that's not enough. And
agree.
all these other streaming shows last over an hour and
Yeah,
or close to an hour.
yeah.
Luckily, these last couple of shows for Andor have been longer.
I've been longer.
Um,
Yeah, exactly. I've been enjoying
in
that.
comparison, yeah, for sure. So, who do you think is going to break out Andor?
Ooh, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, look, I can go the route that probably everybody wants to see, right? And have Hera and Kanan, Hera and Kanan bust him out,
That
uh,
would be wild, man.
or Seb just show up and like bend the bars, right? And have him, bust out. That would be wild. I don't know that they're gonna go that route. Again, we I keep referencing back to that no fan service, direction that it's supposed to be taking. Which I say, man, just look at Luthen's gallery, right? I mean, if that's not fan service, I don't know what is. Um, but yeah, so that's where my head goes to immediately. Who I would like to see busting him out will be a familiar face. Let's put it that way, right? And you can take your pick. We got plenty of characters around this time period, right? Again, we got the rebels, the rebel crew. We got Cal Kestis for that matter, right? I mean, heck, you can throw in Rex for good measure there too, right? I mean, technically, he's around. Some of the retired clones are still around. I don't know, Clone Force 99. If you're really gonna go that route, go wild. Uh, Han Solo, debatably, yeah, about that time. Maybe not the rebel Han Solo, but yeah, the gun for hire Han Solo and Chewbacca. Somebody Luthen pays him enough. It's like, hey, we'll bust out anybody you want for the right price, right? We'll smuggle him out. So yeah, I mean, there's plenty of options in the. I'm gonna put it into the obvious category because that characters again that we know could do it all around in that timeline. Now, will they actually go that route? I actually don't think so. Um, I think what I would love to see, honestly, is uh, either Luthen or oh man, I'm blanking out on his name. Uh, the guy that just got the job, former former security, the guy that was after Andor. Um,
Cyril?
yeah, so I would like for him to somehow find out this dude's in detention, right? And he's like, you know what? I'm gonna take it up on myself to go and like, you know, uh, so he's such a stickler for rules, right? And he's like, look at where that got me. I'm miserable. I'm living back with my mom. I got a crummy job. And he finds out through an Imperial database that Andor is locked away, right? So he's like, you know what? The hell with it. I'm gonna go and like execute it myself, right? Uh, and then of course he botches it, and Andor like escapes, right? So he inadvertently like helps him. That probably won't happen either, but I'm just saying it'll be fun to watch. Um,
Man, you took it so far, all the way to the point where you got maybe right up into the person I think that's gonna break out Andor.
oh, really? Okay. All
I
right.
was just waiting for you to name him. I was like, okay, he's in closer and closer. So the one major character we haven't seen yet is Saul Guerrera.
Yep.
We haven't seen him and his
His
either
band of,
already or soon to be extremist group, and we've seen
yeah,
tube
I'm
tubes.
I'm pretty sure they're already doing some rough stuff out there. Yeah, so that's what I was gonna say. More than likely, that's who it's gonna be. Luthen's gonna panic and be like, you know what, man, we need somebody that's not afraid, that has the muscle behind it, but also the willingness, right, for the cost to do something as crazy as this. And yeah, definitely queue up Saw Gerrera. Um, Now, I don't know. Do you think he would physically do it though? Do you think Saw Gerrera at this point in the story is still physically able to fight, in a, like in a shootout. Like we've known his health, right, is not the best by the time of Rogue One.
Well, he was looking a little more spry in the
Yeah,
trailer, and it's about
and
5 years before he dies.
I'm trying to remember because he comes out in Rebels, right? I'm trying to remember when they steal that yeah, exactly. I'm trying to remember when they were trying to steal that giant kyber crystal, right? I think that's the last episode that I saw him in Rebels. I think he was still like, I think he still had his legs, like his actual legs. I mean, so I think he was still in fighting shape, and I want to say that's around that time. So yeah, maybe. I mean, be cool to see him, put up a fight.
Yeah, for sure. And Saul Guerrero is also in the Star Wars video game Fallen Order, and of course we
You're right.
know that there is going to be a sequel
Oh yeah,
to that game, and it looks like everything is all good according to this last report from Bespin
good.
Bulletin.
Yeah,
So yeah, Star
something's on
Wars
track.
Jedi Survivor, yeah, promotion is gonna go full steam ahead in December, and it's still on track for a March release according to reports. So if you're
Great,
a
man.
big fan of that franchise, yeah.
At least something's on track, right? I guess something had to be after.
Everything but the films, yeah. That's
Well, I mean, they sort of still pushed Bad Batch, right? That was supposed to happen this year.
well, I think it was a domino effect because
Yeah, that's
once they figured out a better strategy, and I really do think it was a better strategy to drop the first 3 episodes of Andor. Because can you
yeah,
imagine watching just that first episode?
exactly. That's yeah.
That'd be rough.
That's rough. Yeah.
So
Yeah. So they, like you said, they've sort of pushed out the rest of the stuff. At least they're keeping commitment on this one. I mean, I'm surprised they're not, they're not dropping it into the holiday, buying frenzy, right? That's usually when some of the major titles drop, like Call of Duty. Um, but yeah, I mean, if it's still on track, hopefully everything's good, and we won't get any weirdness out the gate. I think the story on the previous one was fine. Fallen Order. I think that's one thing that I've heard that people really enjoyed was the story part of it. Gameplay, etc. Like that was, nothing too crazy or too maybe how do I call it, too extreme or too innovative. But the story was very enjoyable, and I'm sure they're gonna do a fine job with the sequel.
yeah, I think it's gonna be a success. They found a good formula that all the
Yeah,
fans have kind of universally agreed upon, and I think they're gonna go through with it. It seems like the story's gonna get a little bit more grander, but there's
yeah.
always that nagging question: why haven't they made a TV show or film where Cal Kestis will just show
Oof,
up? Or
man.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's right, man. It's right there laid out for them. That's that could be their next kind of big franchise, like the
Oh, I
Order
agree.
66 Survivor franchise. That would be interesting. So
I mean, yeah. First of all, you already got another show based off of the aftermath of Order 66, right? Or I should say, the immediate aftermath of Order 66 with the Bad Batch, right? I mean, that's prime for a good crossover right there, right? I mean, it's just it would make perfect sense.
yeah,
And if my initially when I first heard about the project for Jedi Fallen Order, I was like, okay, but don't we kind of have Caleb Doom already, like
yeah,
in sort of that position of the Padawan that survived Order 66, and I get it, they sort of went a kind of a different way, right, with it, but still, right? I mean, imagine, you have two former Padawans meet up for, I don't know, recovering a Jedi relic, that's out on the black market, something that it's too grand, like a holocron, or something like that, that they cannot be left in the hands of the highest bidder. And all of a sudden, that attracts both of them out of hiding, like something big enough, right? That they're like, we gotta risk it. Like there's nobody else left. They think they're the only ones left, right? Pretty much, individually. I mean, and so all of a sudden they realize, hey, there's this other guy that's sort of in the same boat. And then of course after that they go their separate ways. I'm not saying you don't necessarily have to build uh, a body cop like show off of it, but I don't know. There's just a lot that's aligning right now that I think would make just good sense to use the character. And like you mentioned, fans like him, so why not? I mean, it's right there. You have the
Yeah.
real live person also to to use in a show. If you
Yeah,
really wanted
yeah.
to.
It feels like he's just waiting in the wings too. I mean, he's
Exactly.
ready to go. I mean, he's just waiting for that call. Maybe they have called him. Maybe they're not going to announce anything from that
Yeah.
Kathleen Kennedy story. But
Yeah. Right.
there was some other video game news that dropped. Some more details on the Eclipse video
Nice.
game, and this is from the Transmissions Instagram, Galactic Transmissions. New info on the up and coming video game has been revealed, and here's some of the details. Star Wars Eclipse details. Lead character is named Sarah, a member of a human-like race. She's around 30 years old and described as athletic. Her race is at the lead of an empire named the Zeran. The Zeran pride themselves on political and military aggression. Sarah is a fanatical believer in the violence and criminality demonstrated by her empire. When Zeran marry, their nuptials carry interesting military implications. Becoming a governing unit that works together, Sarah is married to Zendo, who is described as having a far softer touch than her. A big part of the game's plot seems to revolve around these two characters and their relationship.
Saran.
So I think the caveat here is we can't expect this video game for a few years, though.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the only drawback. And I think the other details are that it's going to be an open world type video game, which I think Star Wars really lends itself to that type of video game.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I'm surprised we don't get more of those in the Star Wars universe. Even with the High Republic era, I mean, I think you got a plethora of new stuff that you could throw players into that setting, and it's a very rich environment for that type of game. Okay, well, that's interesting, but the Zoran, it's not a name I'm familiar with off the top of my head, though. We don't know exactly the timeline, right, on this, when this sort of takes place.
No, we don't. That detail hasn't been released yet, but it looks like it could be from that original trailer that was just kind of a cinematic reel.
Mm-hmm.
There's no gameplay, I don't think, in there. I mean, it was tough to tell. It could be in the future. I didn't see anything that kind of lent itself to Old Republic style droids or anything of that nature to kind of tell us, to give us some type of clue. But yeah, Lucasfilm Games, that's a new division. They're developing more games. They're trying to push out new stuff. But it looks like they're a lot more solid than the film division as far as making products. So, which I'm the bigger film fan than anything else. I would love to see a film every year.
Agreed.
At least, or every other year, like you say. I know with the Disney acquisition of Fox and everything else, I mean, they have the big Avatar franchise now that they want to release that film every other Christmas. And the plan at one point was to stagger Star Wars film, then an Avatar film, then a Star Wars film. That would have been perfect, but they kind of dropped the ball on the film division.
Yeah, no kidding, man. And it seems like, I mean, again, from that note about Kathleen Kennedy, like it really doesn't project like that they have it, under control. Man, that's sad, to be honest. I mean, to be sitting on some of those, stories, talented people, right, that were also already attached to some of those projects, and to have to let them go. And again, they get busy, right? I mean, they're sought after by other projects, and of course they're going to jump on that if Disney's not is not actively developing any of these projects, why would they stick around? I mean,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's just kind of sad that yeah, to see that there's no clear direction on that.
Yeah, for sure. And I just want to say they need to be a lot less precious with who they hire on to direct these films. It seems like they keep on
Yeah,
going for the big name at the moment: Taika,
right,
Ryan Johnson, Benioff and Weiss,
right,
Colin Trevorrow, Josh Trank. It all kind of fell through. But if you find a creator that's up and coming, or that has kind
sure.
of proven themselves with an indie hit, I know they have a little bit of bad experience with that with Gareth Edwards, because I don't think that he
Hmm.
was able to finish the film without the help of Tony Gilroy. But I mean, to
Yeah, I
me,
mean,
that might have been an aberration.
agreed. Yeah,
Gareth Edwards is such a huge Star Wars fan
yeah,
that it may have become just a little bit too overwhelming, a little bit too personal for
sure.
him. And
Yeah,
you're bringing someone like Tony Gilroy, who's just pumping out scripts and has professed that he's not a Star Wars fan, so he's not
yeah.
going to be too scared in a way and
I was
keep
gonna say
making.
maybe that's a good thing in a way that he's not
Yeah,
gonna be bogged down right by his personal right attachment to the franchise and
right.
maybe the fear of messing it up, right? Um, so yeah, that'd be interesting. I mean,
Maybe a good analogy is, what if you were a brain surgeon, and what if your wife or daughter,
right,
son comes in and they need brain surgery?
right,
I mean, are you going to want
yeah,
to work on that? I mean, are you going to be the one, I mean,
exactly.
it's kind of one of those things. It's like, and that was actually my thought back in 2015. I'm not a director. I'm not close to being a director or working in film or anything, but I was just thinking, what is going through J.J. Abrams' head right now? He got
Yeah,
the keys to Star Wars.
yeah.
He's making the next ginormous, important, impactful, everyone in the world's going to see it, Star Wars film.
Oh yeah,
I mean, how do you calm yourself down? How do you figure out how to make something that is understandable, something that just isn't gibberish in Star
yeah,
Wars?
yeah.
And
No kidding.
and not only that, but bringing in all the legacy characters: Han Solo, Leia, Luke. I mean, man, I'm surprised he hasn't lost all his hair, or just go gray on
Yeah,
us.
yeah,
But
yeah. There's that.
I think he had the temperament, though, and he worked on the first one and he worked on the last one, which he wasn't
Yeah,
supposed to, and
yeah,
he turned it
exactly.
down the first time around.
Yeah, and I can't say that I blame him for that one, but
Yeah.
yeah, that last one, I try not to judge too harshly, just because honestly, I mean, there was what can you do at that point?
Yeah.
There was just too much there to try to solve it all in one film and yet deliver something original and something that would please the fans and et cetera, et cetera. Like it was just I never saw a cross section of that Venn diagram, where all of those things lined up. I was like, yeah, I know, I don't.
Yeah.
So I don't for that one. I don't fault him, or not, anybody really for that last one. It's like kind of like, okay, well, too far into the game to course correct. It's just sort of try to patch it up and let's get a finished product.
And it's super interesting because Colin Trevorrow was supposed to do episode 9.
Yeah,
He got
you're right.
taken off the project, or he left, or whatever happened. He
Yeah, you're
didn't
right.
do
You're
it,
right.
but he stayed on doing Jurassic World and stayed on with that
Yeah,
franchise. And the guy that's the main producer is Kathleen Kennedy's husband. It's so
just
weird.
this is yeah,
It's such a
yeah.
strange thing. And this last Jurassic World, I thought it was ridiculous. It wasn't good. It was really
So
bad.
I got maybe 20 minutes into it, up to the point where they reach Ian Malcolm, and then
Yeah.
I saw the man, I'm terrible at the names in Jurassic Park, so don't hate me. But the one scientist, the only scientist in the franchise, the one that has been from all the way from Jurassic, what is it, Park or World? Oh my God, blanking out his name.
Yeah,
Asian
Sam
looking
Neill.
guy.
Oh, the
No,
Asian-looking guy.
yeah, the genetics one, the actual, the one who actually creates the dinosaurs. Anyway, once I saw he was in the basement, I was like, I'm done. Like it, same thing. It's like, yeah. I was like, nope, I'm okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I will go back and finish it, just to be fair. But yeah, I'm not in a hurry. I'll be honest. Like I didn't really hear anything coming out of when it was out in theaters. So yeah, it's just me trying to finish it out. I guess what is it, the trilogy or 6 of them or whatever it is at this point, whichever way you want to look at it. But yeah, no, I didn't really, like I said, once I saw that guy, I was like, nah, I'm done. I know how this ends.
Yeah. So this Wednesday, it looks like Colin and I will be watching Tales of the Jedi and podcasting on it. And of course, on Wednesdays, it's another Andor drop. It'll be episode 8. So we are going to be alive that day talking about Tales of the Jedi, and we're going to be able to see all the episodes, and we'll give our review that day. If you're available, General Kenobi,
appreciate it.
Join us if you can. And,
thanks. Yeah, it's going to depend on the time, honestly, just because it's my son's birthday.
Oh, wow. Well, maybe, you shouldn't join them.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got that coming up in 2 days. So
I'm super excited, honestly, for Tales of the Jedi. I think I'm going to try to watch it like while he's at school so that I can, not get like spoiled, not so that I get spoilers out there, because and I'm very much looking forward to that one. I think it's going to be pretty fun. Short format, some untold stories that we know are there, right? We've known for decades some of them, but it's going to be nice to see them, right? It's going to be nice to get the details out of them. So yeah, how can I say it? It's going to be really hard to mess this one up. I don't see it doing bad. I think it's in the right hands with the right people coming from the right minds. I'm excited for that one, to be honest. Yeah, man, so much Star Wars. It's nice. I mean, that's a pretty loaded Wednesday.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, Mob Rules is one of our patrons.
Oh, awesome.
And yeah, I definitely do want to shout out all of our supporters on Patreon, starting off with the purple tier: Chris Simpson, Kevin Leininger, Dev McCaffrey, Drew Peters, Zach Netzel. On the red tier, Fenrir526, Matt Heath, Maya Morris. And on the black tier, Maka, Tawatala, Nathan Shank, Evan Opaker, and Liam McCallion. So thank you guys for all your support. And General Kenobi, let the people know where they can find you.
Absolutely, guys. So General Kenobi's Bunker is the YouTube channel. We do toy hunting. We do toy reviews. We also go live every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central on a show called The High Ground, where we discuss, things Star Wars. Obviously, we have Andor to talk about. However, I think, again, it's my son's birthday on Wednesday, so I'm going to try to do it tomorrow. I still haven't decided if I'm going to go on tomorrow, but more than likely I will. Also, guys, if you want to, keep up with more of the day-to-day, follow me on Instagram, same name, General Kenobi's Bunker. And please check out my TikTok under the same name. I would appreciate it if you guys enjoy the content, if you could share it with the people you think would also enjoy it, because I'm trying to reach the 500 subscriber mark on YouTube. I'm getting kind of close. I think I'm around 470, 460 something. So yeah, hopefully, I can get that before the end of the year. And so General Kenobi's Bunker.
Awesome. And if you're new to the Star Wars Stuff Podcast, you can always find us at Instagram at Star Wars Stuff Podcast, Twitter at Stuff Pod. We're also on TikTok. You can email us at starstuffpodcast@gmail.com. And you can find us on Twitch as well at Stuff, SW Stuff 77. And if you can, give us a review on Spotify and Apple. And thank you so much for joining us once again. For General Kenobi's bunker, my name is David, and may the Force be with you.
Thanks, everyone.
Always.